I believe there are 3 tiers of men. The guys at the top of the pyramid, the so-called chads, they have complete control over the whole of the top tier and mid-tier women. A lot of these guys aren't settling down as they have an abundance of both one-night stand options and friends with benefits coming from these 2 tiers. It is these top 10 to 15% guys who are hoarding all the matches on Tinder. For the women in these 2 tiers, especially the mid-tier, in return for what they're giving out, they are demanding relationships and commitment from these top-tier guys. However, the majority of these men are choosing not to cooperate as they don't want to settle with anyone below their level.
That is such a generalization.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
Very weird, very high schooly.
A minor caveat to this though is a fair amount of the top tier guys are happy and okay with getting in a long-term relationship with the highest value women. The women in the middle's unremitting desire to lock down a chad has a knock-on effect for the mid-tier average normie guys. In order for a woman in the middle to maintain her availability, it means she has to temporarily friend zone any non-chad guys that approach her. If you haven't realised by now, friend zoning is effectively the woman wanting to keep you in the background as an orbiter in case she starts running out of time and thinks she may miss out on her plans wanting to start a family. In which case, she can simply pluck you from orbit whenever she feels necessary. In time, these normie tier men become desperate for the women who are rejecting them on their level, end up settling for the friend zone, for which they then become a source of emotional support, favours, and basically a shoulder to cry on.
That's what happens with your friends. That's what friends are for. That's the point of friendship. It's for emotional support.
Yeah, but he's saying that the men don't want to be friends. They want penis and vagina.
I know what it's saying. I know what it's saying.
Both normies and sub-5 guys ferociously simp over the top tier.
I love that.
Ferociously
these women
simp.
give a grand total of nothing back. 7. Wow. A surprisingly large number of the normie tier guys, out of pure desperation, lower themselves to trying with the women at the very bottom for one-night stands and casual intimacy. And the only reason they do this is because they've ruthlessly tried everywhere else and got no results.
Ruthlessly tried.
8.
What does that
These
even mean?
low-tier women, in response, become resentful of average guys for not wanting to commit to them. 9. I find this one the most hilarious. Women of all levels give the same treatment to sub-5 men, which is emotional reactions of disgust, pity, and abhorrence if any of these guys interact with their lives in any way, shape or form. It's gone as far as where sub-5 men don't even get the luxury of being friend-zoned.
What's your opinion on what he's saying?
The whole thing is just, I feel like, inaccurate. Like, there's parts of it that have truth.
I don't think it's all bullshit, though.
I don't think it's all bullshit, right? I don't like the way it's being served.
Fair enough. You don't like the aesthetic.
Yeah, and it's not talking about the right points of, like, why these things are happening. We have endless choices, right? It seems like we have for most people, right? In the normie category or whatever.
I don't think that's true anymore. On Tinder, normies, I feel like it's gotten a lot worse for normies.
Yeah.
10. The only alternative for these bottom tier guys, which again is the same for all 3 tiers of women, is pathetically beta buxing to try grab hold of whatever they can get. For these guys, it's either that, moving abroad, having a miracle looks...
Paying for plane tickets, paying for OnlyFans, seeking arrangement might be considered beta buxing. It's so vague that, like...
Yeah, I'm very confused on what...
transformation, or living in a basement forever playing video games all day. It's how to know which category you fall into. Well, besides looking in the mirror, the #1 way to tell which category you are in is how women react and respond to your behaviour and presence. When you was at school, if you were the guy that every girl gossiped about, that all the girls had a crush on, you were a chad. If you were the guy who was also gossiped about by girls for being a creep or a weirdo, you were probably a sub-5 or just really socially inept. For the guys on either extreme, the treatment they receive is easy to evaluate. You will know you're a normie if out of a small group of girls, there'll be maybe 1, at most 2, that find you attractive. Meanwhile, all of the others will have a complete lack of interest towards you. I've seen this play out in real life countless times. Whenever I hear girls argue argue about whether a guy is attractive or not, the guy in question is nearly always just some mid to high tier normie. This normie treatment contrasts the other two tiers, because for any guy who is a Chad, there is no argument to be made. The consensus among any group of girls will be unanimous, in which they all agree the Chad is highly attractive.
I think that there's a lot of Chads where I'm like, I get that people like find that person attractive, but like it doesn't do anything for me.
Of course.
Just because they're a Chad or like a certain level of hotness doesn't mean if somebody approached me that I would still be like, yeah.
Give me the weed,